Brief History of Mexican Age of Santa Anna, 1829 to 1854.
Born in 1794 to a middle-class Criollo family, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna was raised in the strategic, fever-ridden port of Veracruz. In 1810, at his mother's urging, he joined the Spanish colonial army to fight against the initial uprisings for Mexican independence. Serving under Colonel Arredondo, he fought both Mexican and American rebels in Texas, earning citations for bravery. The young officer witnessed a brutal policy of mass executions, a military education that shaped his later ruthless command style. By March 1821, he was a decorated veteran of the Royalist cause, promoted for his successes against the independence movement. Seeing the tide shift, Santa Anna opportunistically switched sides to support Iturbide's Army of the Three Guarantees. He secured his regional power base by driving Spanish forces out of the gateway from the Gulf to the nation. When the newly crowned Emperor Iturbide removed him from command, Santa Anna revolted, sparking the collapse of the First Mexican Empire. Using his first wife's dowry, he purchased Manga de Clavo, a retreat that became his base for future political maneuvers. Spain made a final attempt to retake Mexico, landing an invading force of 2,600 soldiers at Tampico. Despite his smaller force and the Spanish suffering from yellow fever, Santa Anna launched a decisive night attack. Declared a national hero, he relished the titles Victor of Tampico and Savior of the Motherland. Elected overwhelmingly in 1833, Santa Anna reached the peak of political power as a liberal reformer. Bored by the day-to-day administration, the absentee president quickly retired to his estate, leaving Gómez Farías to govern. While Santa Anna rested, his vice president launched radical reforms to root out corruption and curb clerical privileges. These reforms stepped on powerful toes among the wealthy elite, the church, and the military. As unrest grew, Santa Anna re-emerged from his estate, not as a liberal, but as the protector of the conservative order. In a typical shift of loyalty, he suspended the Constitution, disbanded Congress, and ousted his own vice president. Mexico shifted from a federal republic to a centralized one, governed by a new set of laws that removed state autonomy. The Siete Leyes established a supreme conserving power to maintain institutional stability under the central government. Several states, led by Zacatecas, went into open rebellion against this new centralist authority. In 1835, Santa Anna's forces defeated the best-supplied militia in Mexico, taking 3,000 prisoners. Following the victory, Santa Anna allowed his army to ransack Zacatecas for 48 hours to intimidate other rebels. With the domestic threat crushed, he turned his focus northward to the rebellious Department of Texas. Marching toward Texas, Santa Anna's army suffered from inadequate logistics, freezing weather, and sickness. On March 6, 1836, Santa Anna's forces killed nearly 250 Texan defenders at the Battle of the Alamo. Following the war-to-the-death policy he learned as a cadet, he ordered the execution of 342 prisoners at Goliad. Overconfident, Santa Anna failed to set adequate defenses, leaving his army vulnerable to a surprise attack. On April 21, 1836, Sam Houston's forces completely routed the much larger Mexican army at San Jacinto. Attempting to elude capture, the general was found the next day hiding in the marsh, his identity soon revealed. In captivity, he signed treaties acknowledging the independence of the Republic of Texas in exchange for his life. Returning to Mexico in disgrace, he found a new government had declared his presidency and treaties null and void. Opportunity for redemption came when France invaded Veracruz in the Pastry War over unpaid financial claims. Recalled to defend the nation, he personally led a counterattack into the heart of the French landing force. A French cannonball shattered his left ankle, an injury that required the amputation of his leg above the knee. He used this physical sacrifice to rehabilitate his image, transforming from a defeated general into a heroic martyr. By the early 1840s, Santa Anna was back in power, governing in a more dictatorial fashion than ever before. In 1844, as resentment grew over high taxes and corruption, a mob desecrated his monuments and his buried limb. Fearing for his life, he was apprehended in 1845 and exiled once again, this time to Cuba. When the Mexican-American War began, Polk secretly dealt with the exiled general, hoping he would broker a peace. Promised passage by the U.S., Santa Anna returned to Mexico and immediately reneged on the deal, taking up arms against the invaders. He took control of a nation in collapse. The Treasury reported a cash reserve of just $43,000 to face the American invasion. He rapidly marched newly recruited, hungry, and ill-clothed troops north to engage General Zachary Taylor. Despite outnumbering the Americans, Santa Anna withdrew overnight, just as victory seemed at hand. At Cerro Gordo, he was outflanked and defeated, losing his personal carriage and his prosthetic leg to the Americans. After a series of hard-fought battles, the U.S. Army captured the capital, effectively ending the war. Mexico was forced to cede 55% of its territory, including California and New Mexico, for a $15 million indemnity. Humiliated by the loss and reviled as a venda patria, Santa Anna fled into exile in 1848. Recalled by conservatives to save a nation in chaos, Santa Anna returned to power for his 11th and final term. Abandoning all pretense of republic, he declared himself dictator for life with the title Most Serene Highness. He spent tens of thousands of dollars on prize roosters, entering matches with breeders from all over the world. In 1853, U.S. Minister James Gadsden arrived to purchase land for a southern transcontinental railroad. Needing money to pay his army and mercenaries, he agreed to sell the Mesilla Valley for $10 million. This sale, seen as a final betrayal, triggered the revolution of Ayutla, led by liberals like Benito Juarez. Unable to suppress the popular uprisings, the dictator abdicated for the last time and fled to Cuba. In exile in New York, he imported chicle, hoping to use it for carriage tires to fund another comeback. While Santa Anna's tire project failed, his aide, Thomas Adams, turned the chicle into the foundation of the chewing gum industry. When he tried to return during the French intervention, he was captured, court-martialed, and sent back into exile. Finally allowed to return under amnesty, he lived his last 2 years in poverty, ignored by the nation he once led. Santa Anna died in 1876, a controversial figure who remains the primary inhabitant of Mexico's Black Panther.